Venom is about a failed reporter who gets bonded with an alien symbiote, and they have to save the world from a group of those symbiotes who want to destroy the planet. It's based on a Spider-Man villain, but since he's busy hanging out with Disney, it messes the whole thing up. It starts off with the space shuttle crashing to Earth, and there's a rescue mission where they retrieve these liquid goo things. They're taking one of the astronauts to the hospital, and then he does this, and I guess the symbiote took over her body. Then it cuts to Eddie and his girlfriend Annie. I'm sure that's gonna work out. Turns out he has his own news show that I'm sure is gonna work out. He has to interview Carlton Drake, the guy behind the rocket that crashed, about his life foundation. And his boss asks him to not cause any controversy. I'm sure that's gonna work out. If this is based on a Spider-Man character, why is he in San Francisco?
The Daily Globe incident.
It's not an incident.
Maybe you were run out of New York.
Gee, I wonder what he did there. That night, Eddie is snooping on Annie's computer and finds a controversial email about the lawsuit against the Life Foundation. Yeah, he's not going to cause controversy at all. At the interview, Eddie is asking the questions about the Life Foundation and the rocket. Then he starts asking questions about the human testing and the confidential legal cases.
Eddie, we're talking about the rocket here.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about the allegations.
What an idiot.
Have a nice life.
So he gets fired from his job, and what he did got Annie fired, so she breaks up with him. I mean, he stole confidential information and made a huge deal about it at the worst time possible. What did he think was gonna happen? Meanwhile, the wandering symbiote goes to Chinatown somewhere, kills a bunch of people, and then decides, screw this young body, I want this old body now. I guess Drake and Dr. Skirth have been testing how symbiotes bond for 6 months. And after succeeding with one rabbit, Drake decides he wants to start human trials now. Eddie is now living at some crappy part of town, and while he is at a store, the owner gets robbed, just so they can do something later. At home, he's trying to relax, but his dickhead neighbor starts playing his guitar as loud as possible. So his life sucks now. Drake is starting human testing for the symbiote bond, then this disturbing stuff happens and the subject dies.
Bring in the next volunteer.
Yeah, sure, let's just try that again. So Dr. Sturf scores a conscience and goes to Eddie for help, and he basically tells her to screw off, but later decides screw it and helps her anyway. Oh good, how else was he gonna find Venom? So she just lets Eddie in and tells him not to touch anything. He's going around and taking pictures and sees someone he knows in there, so he starts touching stuff and it sets off an alarm. Why did he think pressing random buttons was gonna open the door? But he eventually breaks her out and she attacks him. Then the symbiote transfers to him and she dies. So he gets out of there in a totally normal way. Once he gets home, he freaks out and starts eating anything he can find. Gross. Meanwhile, the wandering symbiote finds a little girl. Wait a second, has it been going around in this old lady for 6 months? What the hell has it been doing? Anyway, it finds a little girl and decides, screw this old body, I want this young body now. Which is really creepy. Eddie finds Anne in some fancy restaurant to tell her what he did.
Are you drunk?
No, I broke into the Life Foundation.
You did what?
Yeah,
And he sounds crazy and acts like a complete psycho. This is honestly the best scene in this movie. So Dan, Annie's new boyfriend, takes him to the hospital to see what's wrong with him. And Venom freaks out because of the MRI. Why is he freaking out?
Sounds in the 4,000 to 6,000 hertz range are very harmful for it.
Oh, okay. On the plus side, it helps him deal with his dickhead neighbor. Back at the Life Foundation, Drake tries to get Dr. Skirth to tell him who has the missing symbiote by acting all concerned for him. And like an idiot, she believes him, and tells him. So he uses a symbiote to kill her. Drake sends some goons to Eddie's apartment, and Venom just beats the crap out of him. Then they start sending drones after him, so he takes off on his bike. And there's this long scene of him driving through traffic with drones chasing after him and exploding everywhere. Does San Francisco not have police or what? You would think this would be something the police would get called for. But apparently not, and Eddie gets hit by a car. We then get our first look at non-Spider-Man Venom, an hour into this movie.
Eyes, lungs, pancreas. So many snacks, so little time.
But it's still gonna reference the comics. And he bites someone's head off in the most PG-13 way possible. Oh sure, now the cops show up. Then Venom explains to Eddie that his species is here to eat all organic life on Earth.
I know everything, Eddie.
You do?
Everything about you.
Ow.
I am inside your head.
And that.
Who is Anne? Your pulse is quickened.
If Venom knows everything about Eddie, how does he not know who Anne is? Anyway, Eddie wants to give his old boss the evidence against Drake he found. So Dark Spider-Man here climbs up to the top floor. Eddie leaves the evidence, and since he's afraid of heights, he takes the elevator down. Because of this, Venom now has to fight a bunch of police officers in the most PG-13 way possible, until Annie shows up for some reason. I like how Eddie just progressively gets worse and looks like he's gonna die throughout this entire movie. Meanwhile, Drake sees this little girl who looks like hell and decides to get close to her, so the symbiote transfers to him. Eddie and Annie go to the hospital, and Annie uses the MRI to get Venom out of Eddie. Although I'm not sure that's how MRIs work. And of course, Drake's goons show up and capture Eddie. So they take him to the Life Foundation, and Drake tries to get Eddie to tell him where Venom is. He doesn't say, so time for plan B.
Where is he? Where's Venom?
Since he no longer has Venom, Drake's goons take Eddie out to the woods to shoot him. But Venom and Annie save him in the most PG-13 way possible. You know, if you're gonna make your movie this close to rated R, maybe just make it rated R. Then Venom transfers back to Eddie, and they go to stop Drake and Riot from bringing the other symbiotes to Earth. Back at the Life Foundation, Drake is acting like a crazy person and launching a rocket that he's gonna pilot himself. And Riot decides to kill all these scientists in the most you know what, never mind. Venom then goes to stop Riot from getting onto the rocket. By the way, Riot is Venom's offspring who was born after Carnage, who hasn't been born yet because Cletus Cassidy hasn't been introduced yet. Not having Spider-Man in this really messed up the family tree. Anyway, there's this long fight that makes it kinda hard to figure out what's going on, but it looks cool. Then Annie gets there somehow and uses the sound system to delay Riot. Seriously, how did Annie get there so fast? But Riot kills Eddie and gets on the rocket. But since there's no way that they're gonna kill Eddie Brock in the first movie, Venom heals him and gets on the rocket and uses Riot's blade thing to destroy it.
Have a nice life.
Haha, because that's what Drake said to Eddie in the beginning. Sometime later, Eddie goes back to Mrs. Chen's shop and sees the guy who robbed her earlier. So he bites his head off and then leaves. And Mrs. Chen seems awfully calm for just witnessing that. That must have been the best $200 Marvel ever spent. Anyway, just for sequel bait, Eddie goes to San Quentin prison to interview a serial killer named Cletus Cassidy.
When I get out of here, there's gonna be carnage.
Gee, I wonder who the villain in the next movie is going to be. For a movie about a character that has a bond with Spider-Man but not having Spider-Man in it, this is a pretty good movie. They had to change some things in order to make it work, but they did an alright job overall. It's an interesting premise of several beings being taken on a rocket rather than just Venom crashing to Earth on a comet. Having Riot as the leader of a recon team is an okay solution to give Venom a reason to be a good guy, even though his tagline was "the world has enough superheroes." But it is kind of odd when you realize that Riot is one of Venom's later children, especially because Carnage is his first and he hasn't been born yet. I don't like that they tried to get as close to an R rating as they could without actually getting an R rating. Like how they had Venom biting people's heads off, but it's either quick shots or there's no blood, which is extremely weird. But yet they didn't shy away from showing graphic injuries like bones sticking out of someone's body. When this was being made and promoted, the director, Ruben Fleischer, was teasing and hinting that this could get an R rating. But once this was announced that it was rated PG-13, he started saying he had no idea why people thought this might get an R rating. You, dude, it was because of you. While I feel like a PG-13 didn't hurt the movie, I feel like it could have benefited from being rated R. It would have helped make the fights clearer as to what was going on, and it could have shown how violent the symbiotes really are. I guess they made it PG-13 because an R rating would have made it harder for Spider-Man to cross over or something, but Sony owns the movie rights to Spider-Man. Who cares what Disney wants? It does have good acting in it. Tom Hardy makes a really good Eddie Brock. He's good at showing arrogance of thinking nothing can hurt him as a reporter, even after getting run out of New York for something, probably something with Peter Parker. He's also really good at showing the progressive distress Eddie is in as the movie goes along. Michelle Williams is good as Annie. She's able to show that she still cares for Eddie, but is frustrated with his actions, and then terrified with what is going on with Venom, but still wanting to help Eddie. Riz Ahmed makes a pretty good villain. He does a good job acting like he's willing to do anything to achieve his goals, and is obsessed with getting what he wants. His acting can be a bit flat at times though. The visual effects are good for the most part. The symbiote's movement looks really good, and the animation of them going into people's bodies is great. Venom and Riot look great also. They look like they're almost a liquid substance, but yet they have solid features. But there are times when they're fighting that it just looks fake or obviously animated. It's too bad they couldn't have Spider-Man in this, but Sony screwed up and loaned him to Disney, so what are you gonna do? Don't forget to do the YouTube stuff, and thanks for watching.